It's been 100 days since I made my previous video on the RGDS. Gamma OS happened. Rocknix happened. Some people said, hey, it's good now. I said I might buy a white one for 72 euros. The lowest I could find was 74 euros. From a newly opened online shop with promotional price, plus a discount code and a coupon. Tax and shipping included. Otherwise, it stayed at around 120 euros. So, with the looming fear of it being a scam, I bit the bullet. And I can hear some of you say, that price is a steal, I want some. Look, the day before I received this one, another buyer posted a review with a photo. He claimed he had received a toy hair dryer instead of the RGDS he bought. You may want one of these for under 80 euros. You really don't want to ride the emotional roller coaster I found myself in. I'm not going to support nor speak against that shop. You may find it on your own. They sell toys and random handhelds, including chiffon ones. Just saying, sometimes retro gaming as a hobby is not for the faint of heart. Hi everyone, welcome to the lab. This is Sareth. As always, safety first. Safety tip of the day. Don't go trying to break the law. No matter who your lawyer is, if you jump off a bridge, you'll fall. Such is the law. The law of universal gravitation in this example. Don't go jumping off bridges. Be careful, be safe. The safety tip is relevant for today's video. So I'm going to cover the most educational part of this video before anything else. And it's about the law. Well, the laws of thermodynamics, meaning heat inside this device. This also applies to other devices, so I think it's good for you to understand basic principles, and I'll keep it simple. Say we have two identical glasses and two identical microwave ovens. One glass is full of water, the other one is half full. We put each glass in one microwave oven and heat them up at 900 watts for 1 minute. The glass that's half full won't be twice as hot as the one that's full, but almost. Now we put them on a table and let them cool down for 10 minutes. The glass that's half full cools down faster. It is still hotter than the full glass, but it cools down faster when the room temperature is the same. It also heats up faster when both receive the same amount of energy. That also means that the glass that's full will remain hot for a longer period of time. And that is because the glass that's full has more mass to heat up and cool down. Now, these are heatsinks. They're made of copper, and I've seen people put them on the CPUs of their RGDSs. CPU plus heatsink is the glass full of water. CPU without the heatsink is the glass half full. And now, let's see the invisible elephant in the room, which is room temperature. If we take out the back of the shell, the CPU will be exposed to room temperature. So let's imagine perfectly efficient ventilation holes. Like we expose one CPU to room temperature and we leave the other one closed, without ventilation holes. The air inside the closed one will heat up. So the CPU inside the closed one will remain hot for longer. And it will also become hotter than the one that has ventilation. And if it has a heatsink, it will remain hot for longer. I've made some rough numbers and rounded them up just to illustrate this idea. In our example, with glasses of water, let's say room temperature for the ventilated one is 25 degrees Celsius, and for the closed one it's 50 degrees Celsius, because in the RGDS without ventilation there is nowhere for the heat to go. The heat will pile up. After turning both devices off, they'll start to cool down. The glasses of water give us an idea of how the RGDSs would cool down over time. I calculated 10 and 30 minutes to correlate the glasses of water to the RGDSs, with and without ventilation, with and without a heatsink. So, for this particular device, playing short to mid-length sessions, with occasional CPU spikes, but not constantly pushing it, I would go with ventilation holes and no heatsink. So going without a heatsink makes more sense to me. The CPU will cool down faster, and the spikes will be radiated instead of absorbed by the heatsink. Keeping electronic components hotter for longer is usually bad for them, including CPUs. For extended gaming sessions or intensive use, ventilation holes make more sense than a heatsink. Now you do you. I did this. But I only did it in the unit I use for testing, like games I make for Android. I did something similar here. But in the RGDS, I used a manual drill and a very thin drill bit. And I used a dust cover for PC fans as a guide. You may laugh at me and call it my personal flavor of paranoia. But I'm so happy I did this, because in one particular test I messed up. I set up the maximum amount of 3D particles 3 orders of magnitude higher than I intended. I wanted 1000 tops. I put 1 million. I was tired, it was late, it was my fault, my bad. I saw the counter go up, I started stuttering, I killed the app as quickly as I could, I turned the device around, and I used this. Here it is. It's a dust blower for cameras. I put it on one of the middle holes, and I kept blowing cold air inside until I calmed down. And even after that, I would not go with a heatsink. But you do you. And now you should be able to make an informed decision. Also, before you start typing, what's that? Yeah, this stuff and the colorful buttons, I'll talk about them in the next video because I've had to split this one in two. So, yeah, I guess some of you will leave right now for the second video, but if you've stayed with me this far, I'm grateful. Now let's go on to the second part of this video, which is about game development. Now you may be one of those cultured individuals who have been making games with TIC80, Pico 8 or GB Studio, and you look at the RGDS and you think, I wish I could make games for that one. Well, the question is, how much pain are you willing to put into it? If you're good with C or C++, you can make DS games with BlocksDS. But I'd rather take advantage of the increased resolution and even the joysticks on the RGDS. About those joysticks, kind regards to Ninja Dude, we do what we can with what we have, right? So, still, I would limit touch input to the lower screen, because the top screen could move if pushed, and players would complain. I'd also advise you to target GammaOS with DualStack. Not Rocknix, not stock OS. If you are comfortable deploying to Rocknix and profiling, debugging and stuff, good for you. I find it easier to do all that on Android. And the easier it is, the more likely it is for a project to be completed. Difficult stuff often goes unfinished. Now about game engines. Unreal and Unity, forget about it. You can get games made with those to run on the RGDS. It just takes a lot of time and effort to make them run well. Even 2D stuff. Godot makes more sense. I have put a 3D scene on the top screen and a menu on the bottom, and I haven't gone much further. With Godot, you could make kind of an HD remake of Golden Sun, but I'd rather go with something like Silent Hill or Blade of Darkness. What I mean by that is, if you go 3D, try to limit the view distance, be it with fog or darkness or dungeon walls. Or maybe a top-down or isometric view. Just try not to show too much stuff on the screen at the same time. Also, multiple lights and detailed shadows will kill your frame rate. And I'd also go for a retro 3D look like in Pseudoregalia. But instead of 3D, I would go with 2D. Well, I'm actually going with 2D with a couple of test projects. And the trick is DualStack, using both screens as one, but with a gap. So think of the RGDS as having one screen, 640 by 1128. As both screens are 640 by 480, that leaves a gap of 640 by 168 pixels. There were DS games that treated both screens as one continuous surface, such as Nora and the Time Studio. If you want that, go 640 by 960. If you want to take out the gap between the screens, like I've done with these wallpapers, go 640 by 1128 and remove the 168 pixel gap. And because I'm going 2D and I like it better when it's simple and easy, I have tried several engines, and I'll mention at least the least painful so far. Some people collect magic cards, some people collect handhelds. A former colleague and dearest friend of mine has said of me that I have the bad habit of collecting game engines. And he's not wrong. So I have tried several of them for making games for the RGDS, and I will tell you about some of them, not many. I don't want to make it boring. AppGameKit Studio. It is kind of bare bones. It reminds me of Dark Basic and Div Game Studio, so I'm kind of biased here. It's easy to use, it's newbie friendly, it gets the job done. It's not the best, it's not the worst. It works. One level of basic dialogue, like a visual novel, and the second level with a top-down shooter, having a mock-up radar and special weapons buttons on the lower screen, took me about half an hour to make. With temp graphics, meaning stick figures and reused sprites. You may spend a lot of time drawing stuff, especially if you're not an artist. And I am not an artist. Now, Defold. It feels less newbie-friendly. The same test project, took me a bit under 2 hours. I'm sure I could make it in half the time now. But my point is, I'm not familiar with Defold, but I'm also not familiar with AppGameKit Studio. Defold also feels more mature, more capable, more robust. It's free, so maybe if I'd spend time learning it... Oh, exporting for Android from Defold was not a pleasant experience for me. I also tried GameMaker. Well, I'm kind of familiar with GameMaker, not an expert on anything, but I think I will go with GameMaker and make a full game with it for the RGDS. If you're interested, I could make videos about it. You tell me. I've also considered Action GameMaker, but I'd rather go with Godot at this point. Unless they make an APK exporter, it doesn't justify the extra steps, and it doesn't really cut down development time for me. I could say something similar about Game Creator, but instead it's HTML5 and Cordova. But if I'm going through Cordova, I might as well use Construct 2. But I'd only use that for simple games like Meteos or Might and Magic Clash of Heroes for the DS. Because I am not paying a subscription to use Construct 3. Much less when it's a piece of software that runs in a browser. So I'm not even going to give you a link for that one. There are others. Some I've tried and I'm not even mentioning them. Some I haven't had the time. But I have to split the video in two because I wanted to talk about the heat and the game dev stuff. The heat to help you understand so you can choose wisely. The game dev stuff, even if it's been high level, for my own selfishness. And to know if anyone cares. I mean, making games for the Paukiri X28 or the Retreat Pocket 3 or 5 feels like making regular Android games. But for the RGDS, this platform feels special. To me, at least. I wish it were more powerful, more RAM, more storage, but I'm not paying 500 euros for the AYN Thor. Nope. So, the next part, coming right up, hopefully, is about stuff most people care about, like compatible buttons, like the sticker, and the stylus, and to anyone who might have stayed with me until the end, thank you. I mean it. I'll be right back. In the meantime, be well.